things are quite different for NTs. They have everything. They have everything so much better. They really do. One of the things that I've noticed is that every time a well-known person commits suicide, you have this torrent of well-meaning people giving out suicide prevention advice, saying things like, "Oh, all your family and friends are going to miss you," the whole guilt trip thing, and it really gets on my nerves because for us, that is AS people, Aspergians, Autistics, whatever you identify as. The situation is a little bit different. For us, it's about 2 and 3 that have either given serious thought to or have actually attempted suicide. So about 60% it is. And when it happens, it's not quite as shocking or surprising, I should say. Basically, throughout life, we don't have the same massive support network that the average person does. So for someone that's never been in that position, the reasoning of, oh, friends and family are going to miss you, it makes sense to them. Yeah, because they only live in their own little bubble of understanding. But for us, people that say that, it just really pisses you off. Yeah, and it might even make things worse, actually, because by comparison, NTs have this enormous support structure, whereas AS people have next to nil. And generally speaking, you're thoroughly ostracized and rejected by society. Now, for people that sort of can't relate to that and might think that's not the case, for starters, it's quite common for neurotypicals to compare us to diseases. You'd be surprised the amount of flack you actually cop online when talking about acceptance of AS people. People have actually asked me, should we also be accepting of cancer? In pretty much every conversation about the spectrum I've had with neurotypicals, there's always someone that compares us to diseases. And the people that spout this hate speech always get lots of praise from other neurotypicals. Within our families, though, it doesn't get much, doesn't get any better, really. When parents get a diagnosis, what usually happens is they go through this sort of mourning process, the same way you would mourn for the death of a child. That's because being born an Aspergian or autistic is mostly viewed as being worse than death, well, by most people, I'd say, rather than actually being valued and appreciated. When I was growing up, for example, the idea that I was both stupid and monstrous was something that was constantly reinforced. The choice words were spastic and retard. And this is your own family saying it. So, yeah. And yet other people, other AS people that obviously have it, they might have it a bit worse than me, they might have it a bit better. There are many people out there that are actually desperate. I mean, absolutely desperate and frustrated to wipe out the spectrum, meaning they want to actually wipe us out. So much so that parents actually end up torturing their own kids with poison. If you've heard of something called MMS, magical miracle magical miracle solution or something, and it's an attempt to cure the autism in quotes. Then you have parents that actually kill their kids out of kindness, and that's now just on the rise. So you get the picture. Basically, we're not exactly liked or accepted. So when people use the whole, oh, you shouldn't kill yourself because your family and friends will miss you. As you can imagine, that's not exactly helpful. More often than not, it's a stark and painful reminder that the vast majority of people have all these people that care about them, and that's the norm, while you, on the other hand, don't. And uh, it's a it is a stark reminder that your family hates who you are as a person, not just your family, but society in general hates who you are as a person. Then out of all the people that hate you, there's always going to be one or two that do care, And hearing that, most people would go, aha, if you die, then those people will miss you. It's still not a good thing to say. It's what it is the whole guilt trip thing. Okay, it's still not a good thing to say, because there's a good chance that will make things much worse, because it actually creates this whole guilt trip scenario where you feel like you're letting them down, and that it's all your fault and stuff like that. And it's not a good thing to do. So instead of that rubbish advice, I will now attempt to give some valid advice, some tips as a sort of survival guide. Hopefully something that isn't useless. But firstly, you need to challenge what they say about us. You need to realize that we, as in AS people, are not diseased or defective, and certainly not inferior. If you apply just a little bit of scrutiny to what these hateful people are saying, you'll find that it's not us that has a problem. You'll find that some people, they'll say, oh, everyone is different. When in reality, that's the last thing they want. They actually want every single person to be exactly the same as each other, except they just want a little bit more money. So by applying just a little bit of scrutiny to what they're saying, you'll find that the truth is they can't handle others being even slightly different to them. Okay, it's important to keep this in mind, I believe. Secondly, it's quite messy, very messy actually. Regardless of how you go, you won't be leaving a pretty corpse, in quotes. The corpse itself, it's actually, if you've been to a morgue, it's a whole new level of gross. Then there's the bowel movements. It's not in the majority, but corpses are known for releasing their bowels. That is something that happens. That is, they defecate themselves when they pass. It is a combination of different awful things. Sweat, urine, feces, and of course, rotting meat. It's not a pleasant way to go. Then something else to consider is that God or gods don't really exist, and that there isn't such a thing. It is something to consider. Even if you're a religious person, it may be just the reason why some religious people are a bit hostile towards atheists, and unwarrantedly so, it might be not necessarily that they hate the person itself, but rather just the thought that atheists might be correct and that there is no afterlife, and thus would be, forced into confronting their own mortality. Basically, if there isn't an afterlife, this is the only shot you have, and you do need to get the most out of it. Which brings me to my next point. When you are dead, you will indeed miss out on quite a lot of things. Dead people don't get to play the latest video games coming out. We just had Fallout 4 come out. We've got Zelda just around the corner. We've got the new XCOM coming out just around the corner, and you'll never get to play any of the new games. You've got VR is just on the cusp of becoming sort of household. Then you'll have other things you might enjoy, like say different food. You might never get a chance to eat your favorite meal again, and it might sound a bit silly, but missing out isn't exactly. It's not fun to miss out, and if when you're dead you won't get to do a lot of things. Actually, you'll miss out on for example, technological advancements. We just found water on Mars. We might someday terraform Mars. You'd miss out on seeing that. Now, for all those well-meaning people that just want to stop suicide and don't know how to, for all those people wondering how to stop suicide, the most effective way, I think, is to call out all the bullshit and to fight injustice whenever you see it. Whenever someone is trying to spread the vile stigmas about AS people, trying to paint us as diseased or defective, or in some way inferior, call out their bullshit. Call out their bullshit and then ask for some proof. That's the best way, I believe, you can stop suicide among AS people.